Three, two, one. Welcome to the Scoop World Order Wild, brand new quarterback in the room edition. We got a new face in the room, and it happens to be the number one player in the country and the highest rated quarterback of all time. So, Nevada Book, what are your thoughts on Quinn Ewers reclassifying and joining this now four-headed monster to start a quarterback for Ohio State this year?
Yeah, well, it's just a crazy story, and to think that this started in a wild prediction thread that you threw out 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, or whatever it was, and now we're sitting here, and Quinn Ewers is actually coming to Ohio State. It's just, I mean, I just can't describe how big the news is. We've been talking about NIL and what the impact is to college football, and both the good side and the bad side and the different side. And a lot of people kind of poo-pooed that, said, Nevada, you're making too much of this. This isn't going to change much. Well, this is kind of, nothing like this has ever happened before. So I'd say that this qualifies as kind of changing everything. And it's going to be a heck of a story here to follow, through fall camp and through this year and into the future years. It's gonna require us to change the way that we're thinking about all these recruits, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Bank, what's your initial thought on Quinn Ewers joining the quarterback room this week?
Yeah, I think it's great. I wrote like a 1,000-page manifesto last week on the impact of Quinn Ewers coming to Ohio State early, and I had 5 or 6 bullet points, all of them positive, both for Quinn and also for Ryan Day in Ohio State. So I think it's a total win-win for the kid, and I think it's a win for Ryan Day. I mean, my whole thing out of this is, if you're an Ohio State fan, speaking for the Ohio State staff, you want this kid to be the best version of himself he can be. Well, would he be better served by playing 10 Texas high school games? 7 of them are going to be blowouts. He's going to play half the game, not going to be challenged. Or would you be better served from whatever happens at Ohio State? Look at the high end. Say he ends up winning the job and he's a starter. Look at the low end. Say he's the clear number 4. He gets to spend every day with Ryan Day, Corey Dennis for the next 5 or 6 months. That's going to be a million times more beneficial to this kid than playing 10 high school Texas games against blowout competition. This is a total win-win for the kid, and anything that makes Quinn Ewers better makes Ohio State better down the road. You want every kid on that roster to be the best version of himself he can be, and this will make Quinn a better Quinn than what he would be playing 10 games in Texas.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, from my standpoint, I just think about, $1 million right in your pocket with some equity in a company. You get to be coached by Ryan Day. I love Riley Dodge. I think he's a fantastic coach, but Ryan Day is the best quarterback coach maybe in the world right now. 2 straight guys going into the first round. You have excellent wide receivers to throw to and develop chemistry with. And you see how important chemistry is. Like, you look at Joe Burrow, the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell because they had that ridiculous chemistry. And literally they had maybe the best quarterback and best receiver seasons of all time. So, you start developing that chemistry with the guys that you're going to be making your money on, and you get your body right with Mickey Marotti. You start acting like a pro. You got the money where you can get a dietitian, you can get a nice house. It doesn't have to be some bombastic house, but it can be very functional. Put a film room in, you can get yoga trainer. It's, when with this kind of money, man, I mean, he's acting like he's got to act like a pro now. And that doesn't mean jewelry. That means taking care of your body. It means watching film. It means all the trappings that guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning have in their house. Like, Philip Rivers had a van that was outfitted with a film room, so he could drive from San Diego to, LA when he was playing for the Chargers that winter. So it's, those are the type of things you can do when you have $1 million in your pocket. In terms of the quarterback room, it's iron sharpens iron. I mean, whoever comes out of this thing is it's like 4 gladiators walking into the arena. Whichever one is left standing at the end of all of them is a bad dude. So whoever is the quarterback that is the winner of this competition is going to be a bad man, and it's going to bode well for Ohio State. It's the only way I can look at it. Ken, do you agree with most of that? Do you disagree with any of that? any upside downside to you for him coming a year early?
Well, you're always worried about, expectations. The expectations on him are going to be so high right now, given his ranking, given his perfect ranking coming out of high school. And now you're asking him to come in on the eve of fall camp and beat out some really, really, really talented quarterbacks that have been in this system exponentially longer than he has.
Nope.
And the only downside to me is just the weight of expectation that's coming with this. And can he stay patient through it? Can people stay patient with him? How does he handle adversity? What if he isn't the starting quarterback coming out of the fall camp? How does he react to that? Is he okay with that? What does it mean about next year? So there's a lot that we don't know about this, but I 100% agree with both you and Bank that the best players play, iron sharpens iron, and whoever gets the starting quarterback job is absolutely going to be a stud. And so Ohio State wins from that standpoint. But as we've learned of anything watching Ohio State football here, especially over the last few years, you better have somebody behind them, because funny things happen, and you're one twisted ankle away from chug time, and that can be less than optimal if you don't have a deep quarterback room. So how Ryan Day handles this, how Ryan Day handles all these issues with the fact that it's a position that only one person plays, I think it's going to be it's going to be really, he's going to earn his money. Ryan Day, we already considered him to be an elite coach. Well, he's got an elite job ahead of him in handling his quarterback room, and I can't wait to see it.
Bank, do you agree with most of what Nevada said? I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it shakes out in terms of scheduling reps for 4 quarterbacks during camp, because they don't have 2 days anymore. So you got like 1 practice a day, and you got to schedule these kids to make sure they get their reps. And not all reps are created equal. Like if I'm playing quarterback and Bill Green's playing quarterback and Nevada's playing quarterback, like I want reps with the ones. I want reps with handing it to Master Teague, and I want the good O line, and I want throwing it to Olave and Garrett Wilson. And you might only get 3 or 4 of those a day now if there's 4 quarterbacks they're trying to schedule reps equally, because you can only do that for so long before you get a quarterback game ready. Talk a little bit about that process and just your thoughts going forward with the quarterback room.
Yeah, what I think, well, and we don't know. I mean, here's what I think will happen. I think from Ryan Day's point of view, obviously he's encouraging Quinn to come in, because he could have squashed it. As soon as this came up, Ryan Day could have said, look, we got 3 here now. I don't want to make someone transfer. Please stay in Texas. Your time's coming. Come in December. Well, he obviously hasn't done that. He's encouraging Quinn Ewers to get in here. And again, I think it's for the reasons I mentioned before. I think it's to get the head start on coaching this kid. I don't think the kid is a threat to be the starter. And if I'm wrong, I will be thrilled to write that. He proved me wrong, kid. Prove me wrong. I'll admit it gladly. So I think from Ryan Day's point of view, it's to get the leg up on, let's start coaching this kid today. Get Corey Dennis. Let's get on this kid now. Generational talent. From Quinn's point of view, I would look at it as a dad, and I would hope that the kid gets a clipboard and a pencil and a headset. Just learn. You got plenty of time. There's no need to rush any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Learn as much as you can. And don't worry about, being the starter, being the backup. Just chill out and learn. And then you're, like you said, Kirk, you've played there before. You get what you earn. If Quinn earns, he's going to get what he earns. And it's okay if he's the number 4 guy. It's fine. Doesn't mean he's a failure at all. This is unheard of for a kid to come in after his junior year at an elite program. So I'd be fine if the kid just got a clipboard and, Nevada's getting his nuggets every other day or a couple times a week about how Quinn's progressing. I think that would be fantastic. If the kid's better than someone else, he's going ahead of him. If he's better than 2 of them, he's going to be the backup. So let's see where it happens. I think ideally, I don't see how you just show up after your junior year of high school, the day fall camp starts and take a job. I don't see how that happens. If it does, I will tip my cap to that dude. I'm excited for Quinn Ewers, but I'm excited for the next 3 to 4 years, not the next 3 to 4 months. But
Yeah.
I could be dead wrong.
Bank, I'm staying with you as our national recruiting expert. Is there any part of Ryan Day? Because I think in the back of my head, when you get the number one quarterback in the country, you've got 3 kids with freshman eligibility. Say CJ Stroud goes crazy and he's a top 5 Heisman guy, which could happen in this offense. Which he could be.
He's listed right now in the top 5 for Heisman favorites by Las Vegas.
Yeah, because if you look at the infrastructure, the tackles, the wide receiver talent, the running back, it's just not the schedule we play. It's not far fetched. So is there any part of you that thinks that this is good to get him in the fold to keep him from getting poached by Steve Sarkisian at Texas or Nick Saban at Bama? Because if you've got a kid with freshman eligibility and he's a Heisman finalist, is it still as appetizing for a Quinn Ewers to show up when that kid is probably pretty entrenched in that spot?
Yeah, I think that means a lot. And I think for Ryan Day, part of it, getting Quinn on campus, it's a lot easier to manage Quinn Ewers from Columbus. And all you got to do is keep him out of the portal. That's a lot different than he's 1,000 miles away and Steve Sarkisian's down the road and Saban is lurking and the A&M oil money's lurking. This is much better for Ryan Day. And, I just hope that Quinn Ewers and his father, they seem like such level-headed, great people. And I hope they're looking at this as a long-term plan. And, Quinn's going to get exactly what he deserves and he's going to get what he earns. And I hope they're just looking at this as a 3 or 4 year deal and not a 3 or 4 month deal. And I don't think they are. From what you've said, you've had conversations with the dad. I guess he's really a heck of a guy. So I think this is going to be great.
In Nevada, your thoughts on NIL with this? Obviously that $1 million laying out there that's the new thing, man. And this, would you be worried if he stayed in school, if some oil guys passed the hat and found another $1 million and said, hey, if you come here, you get $2 million, or if you come here, you get $3 million? Because, it's different with Steve Sarkisian because, as Banco points out with Urban, he loved the running quarterbacks, the Sam Ettlingers, JT Barrett's. Steve Sarkisian is not that guy. Steve Sarkisian is like Matt Leinart and Carson Palmer and Tua, these guys that are throwers first. And, when you see a guy that develops quarterbacks like Sark does, it makes me more nervous if I'm Ohio State that guy is at Texas now instead of a guy that is wanting to run the quarterback the way that Tom Herman did. But talk a little bit about the NIL potential for him to stay on the open market longer. And even, CJ Stroud blowing up. If CJ Stroud blows up, that doesn't bode well if Quinn isn't in the program, if he's out, as basically a free agent, as a unsigned recruit. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think, Bank touched on it earlier, and I think it's an important point. You've got him on campus, but you've still got the portal. And the portal's still, now, again, it's not as big a threat. I 100% agree with Bank. It's better to have him there than to have him, in Texas and just being one signature away from going somewhere else. But the portal makes it pretty easy for guys to move.
Yep.
And in terms of NIL, a lot of schools are using NIL money as a recruiting tool via the portal.
Yep.
So that
Absolutely.
Texas A&M oil money or whatever, that still could be thrown at him if he's the backup quarterback at Ohio State and they feel like they have a chance to get him to move over. So, NIL just means you have to keep it's not even like we used to say it's not good until the ink's dry on the Letterman pen. Well, now you can't even say that.
It's never dry. Yeah, it's like this. It's like invisible ink now.
Yeah, it's disappearing ink. It's like it's never. It's going to be one of those things where you're just going to have to keep recruiting and keep catering to these kids, and the NIL money is going to be out there, and it's still going to be out there because I know for a fact that there are schools that have designated they've created I call it slush fund, that they've created funds of money that is directly earmarked for recruiting kids via the portal, and that is going to happen. And so if there's that 6th offensive lineman who's just not going to shut it, that stud running back that's sitting behind somewhere, there are schools that are going to be throwing NIL money at them, via the boosters and via the third parties. But that's how they're going to be attracting kids. So recruiting's never going to end now, and you're going to always have to be watching
Mhm.
and keeping an eye on kids and making sure they're happy and doing that. And it's definitely a sea change for everything.
But Kirk, also now, if Quinn Ewers stays, if he would have decided to stay in Texas high school, the A&M people could have got the signature in December, and he could have been their starter next spring of 2022. By being at Ohio State, yeah, he can still go in the portal, but the COVID factor is over. He would now have to sit out a year, would he not?
I'm not sure. I mean, the way it is with these attorneys, with Thomas Mars and
get a free year, he wouldn't qualify for a free year.
No, he wouldn't get the COVID year, but
a little more difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, the way these guys have been getting immediate eligibility, it's been like, because the programs I look out for are the programs that are like 5-star top tier programs that hit the iceberg, like LSU did last year, and then all of a sudden you have their 5-star number 1 tight end leave, and you have half their team go into the portal because they showed up and they're like, oh, we just won the national championship, we just won the Natty, and then after their freshman year they lose to Mississippi State. Ed Ogeron might get fired. The place might be burned to the ground by the time the season starts with the Darius Guy stuff. Because I look out for, when Ken's talking about the slush funds and who to go after. I mean, it's going to be kids that go to the wrong programs or make the wrong decisions, or the coach gets fired. If there's some stud that wanted to play for Tom Herman and then all of a sudden he gets whacked in December and then Sark shows up and doesn't like him.
Kirk, think about, it used to be you couldn't transfer in conference, but now like SEC changed the rules and you've got Toa go from Tennessee to Alabama.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, I mean, some of these smaller schools are just turning into farm systems for the good schools. I mean, LSU spent a year on Eric Gilbert or whatever the tight end's name was, and he ended up at Florida, I think, or Georgia. Georgia. Yeah, he looked at Florida and Georgia, ended up at Georgia, and that's going to be the crazy thing, man. Is like the recruiting and as you guys know as well as anybody, especially banks around South Florida guys and all that. The back alley, handlers know how to get to these kids without the coaches ever touching it. There's always like 3 or 4 steps of removal where they can figure out how to still gauge interest in a kid, say, hey, we got a spot for you. Hey, we need a corner. Hey, our running back, just tore his Achilles and we need you bad. And the big question I have for you guys going forward is, how prevalent does this come when kids get major NIL money? Like Quinn Ewers is kind of a unicorn. He's got the mullet. He's number 1 player, highest rated of all time. He's in Dallas, Texas, which has a lot of money. But, if you're Trey Henderson, the way, you see how these kids, like Beanie Wells is my boy, but, his junior year at Ohio State, he did not run as hard as he did his sophomore year because he was this close to making $20 million. So it's like, as long as I don't tear my ACL or break my leg or anything, I'm good to go. Like, how many of these high school kids are going to start taking that mentality? If you're Trey Henderson, how hard do you want to run? Do you want to get another 300 carries in high school when you can reclassify and go to the Florida Gators, or you can go to the Miami Hurricanes and say, hey, you're going to play this. You're going to be our number 2 guy. Come here. We've got 500 grand in, or we have 50 grand. We have 100 grand. Like the number doesn't have to be $1 million. It could be much smaller. Most of these guys are destitute. Their parents are destitute. And, like, how commonplace has this become? Because I'm telling you, that's the thing that, like these running backs, man, they can't get paid fast enough. They can't wait to get out of college, get to the league. Once they get in the league and they're on that first deal, they'll, like Le'Veon Bell sat out a year to get his second deal so he could get 60 million from the Jets. Like, how prevalent does this become? And is this the new normal, Bank?
I think it is going to be the new normal. And I wrote last week, kind of half in jest and maybe half not in jest. If I'm Nick Saban, I'm getting 10 rich boosters that own companies, and I'm going to tell them, you're my Crimson Club. You're my 10. You're my dudes. I need $2 million out of each of you every year. $2 million a year gives us $20 million. Here's the list of my 25 recruits I need. I don't want to hear any bull crap. I don't want any excuses. These are my 25. You will deliver my 25. Pay them what you got to pay them. It's legal now. It's legal. Pay them. And if 25 million doesn't get it done, then you all need to contribute more, or I'll replace you with new Crimson Club members.
Yeah,
it's legal. Get the car dealership guy. You know what I mean? Get the insurance guy. Get the real estate guy. And I mean, I think that's the way I would do it. It's legal. I wouldn't break rules, but I'd walk right up to them And
Yeah.
that's what I would do. I'd identify my 25 guys and tell them, you will get me my 25 guys.
Yeah, I mean, and when you got Bear Bryant Jr., who I can't stress is the most powerful person in the state of Alabama. I mean, he owns a bank. He's worth over $1 billion. I mean, he doesn't get told no by anybody in that state, you know, and it's weird because he basically was Bear Bryant's kid. You know, it'd be like if Woody Hayes' kid was the most powerful person. You don't even know his name. Matt Hayes, I think. I don't even know what his name is. It's like, yeah, but guys like that, man, they can figure it out. And I mean, even, you know, Nevada, me and you talked about, like, all of a sudden you start not even needing scholarships. Like, could you give a walk-on 500 grand because he's a 5-star kid and start, you know, getting 100 guys that are quote unquote scholarship guys? Like, I mean, I don't know, if you start hoarding guys and rolling them through and you say, hey, look, we're going to take 3 tailbacks this year. And, you know, you guys are all going to get, you know, 5 carries a game. So you don't have much tread on your tire. And we're going to have, you know, it's like, where does it stop? I mean, you know, 'cause I mean, like I did the big thing about Phil Knight. You know, he's worth $56 billion or whatever, some insane amount of money. And I'm like, dude, you know, he could, $1 million to him is like 60 cents to a guy that makes 35 grand. So, I mean, he could give out $1 million like he's going out to lunch. I mean, and, you know, some of these guys, they give gifts of 5 million, 10 million bucks to a university and they get like a sign on in some building, or they get, you know, what if I could get you Quinn Ewers and Trey Henderson and you could watch your team win a national championship? Like, is that better?
Well, let me ask a different question to you two guys. Does Ohio State now need a quarterback in the 2022 class?
Bank. I would probably take one. Yeah, you're going to have 2 transfers coming at some point.
Yeah.
I would take one every year.
Yeah.
Now, who are you going to get is one thing.
Do you have to go after Drew Alder?
I don't think he'd be dumb enough to come bang heads at Ohio State. He's going to be the starter at Penn State in 2022. I mean,
yeah, I
think it'd be stupid on his part, but yet I guess you could ask him how badly he wanted to be part of Ohio State. You know, I would go get a quarterback. I definitely would. I wouldn't take a chug. I'm taking a real player. If I can get a real player, I'm taking him. I don't want a placeholder. You can get those guys out of the transfer portal. If I can get a real dude, I'll take him. The transfer stuff doesn't bother me. Everybody's all worried now. Oh, Quinn coming in early, he's going to force someone to transfer. They're going anyway. With Quinn coming in August is no different than Quinn coming in December.
In January,
You know what I mean? 2 of these guys are not going to be at Ohio State for 4 or 5 years. And it's fine because Ryan Day will go get Jaden Davis. He'll go get the Nico kid out of California.
Exactly.
It's just going to keep happening. I mean, Ryan Day and Corey Dennis have shown that they can recruit with anyone the quarterback position. So let 2 of them leave. You bring 2 more in. It's just, you know, I'd rather have too many than not have enough.
Yeah. And I mean, you'd rather have too many 5 stars and half of them leave than have, you know, God bless. I love Kenny Guyton to death, but it's like, you know, nobody
you put him on the field and try to win a national championship.
And I love him to death. I'm just saying that. But it's like, you know, there's kids that we had that were, you know, Robbie showed up. We had guys that were 4-year guys that couldn't play, you know, Antonio Henton, like guys that aren't 5-star all-world guys. And like the difference is now with Ryan Day is, I mean, dude, like I would say, look, I had Dwayne Haskins start for 1 year, 1st-round pick. Justin Fields, like 1.5 years because of COVID. He didn't even get to do an offseason. He didn't. So 1st-round pick, top 10 pick. Like, I mean, if you come with me, you only need to start for 1 year in your 1st-rounder, you know, so that's a pretty compelling thing to say to all these guys because he keeps churning them out. And whoever the next guy is that starts is probably going to be 1st-rounder or we're close to it, 1st, 2nd-rounder. Like it's, you know, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, he's as good as there is. And it's only compounding now. If you had Quinn Ewers, who, you know, people say is the next Aaron Rodgers, he's the next Matt Stafford. I mean, really, I think he's like Matt Stafford. Like Matt Stafford was the #1 recruit, #1 overall pick, signed for $60 million. Like, I love Aaron Rodgers to death, and obviously I think he's better than Matt Stafford, but when he came out of college and through, I mean, he didn't get an offer going into college. So it's like, I think that's a bad comparison from the high school to college thing, but obviously Aaron Rodgers might be the best quarterback to ever live, but you know, he was like the 24th pick in the draft because people weren't sold on him. But Matt Stafford was number one, like Lawrence was number one. And that's what Ewers could potentially be. Well, I mean, I don't know what else to say, man. I mean, if you haven't joined Buckeye Scoop yet, man, this is about to be the craziest camp maybe of all time. They open up camp on Wednesday at 7:30 in the morning.
Yep.
Quinn will not be there. He will be finishing up his last class, but he will join the team at some point during camp. It's going to be crazy, man. So I'm going to, it's a quick little over under. How many games does Quinn Ewers get into this year? I'm going to set it at 2. Start with you, Nevada. Over under 2 games.
Now you're saying in, not starting, right?
In, just in, not starting.
I'll say it'll go over 2.
I should have set it at 4 because 4 is the threshold for the red shirt. What about you, Bank?
Yeah, I think he starts 0 games, but plays in 4. Takes
There you go.
snaps in 4 games. I can almost guarantee that Ryan is
Yeah.
he's gonna get him snaps.
Yeah.
Now, will they be, when you're tied with Michigan in the fourth quarter? Probably not. Will it come when you're murdering somebody 55-3 in the fourth quarter? Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so I think he plays in 4, starts 0 though.
Yeah. But I mean, college football's, it's been weird the last few years, man. You look at Clemson last year, they had to start DJ Ukulele, Big
Yeah.
Dave's kid.
Yeah.
Lawrence had COVID.
Big games.
You look at Tua getting hurt and Jalen Hurts steps in and saves the season. Like Jalen Hurts stinking it up and Tua winning the championship. Like the backup quarterbacks have played a bigger role, even at Ohio State. It's like when JT gets hurt and Haskins goes into the Michigan game, I mean, there's been more episodes of backup quarterbacks saving seasons in the last 7-8 years than I could remember in the previous 15, so it's the backup quarterbacks. He's actually a guy now. I mean, you got to be on it and ready, and you just never know. I mean, it's crazy right now, but I'm going to wrap this, guys. If you guys aren't on Buckeye Scoop, I don't know what you're doing. We have the best inside information in the industry. Bank, I appreciate you, my man. Bank
Yep.
blogs coming soon. Nevada, the Nuggets are going to be pouring in from training camp. I can't wait for that. And if you guys aren't part of the Scoop, man, you got to get on the Scoop because our training camp stuff is going to be spectacular. Our recruiting coverage is great, and I just wanted to give you that shout out. So thank you, my friends. And this has been the Scoop World Order.